Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house and welcome to my first foray into the world of Frank Henenlotter. I'd never seen any of his films until a couple of nights ago when I watched FRANKENHOOKER for the first time. And if ever there was a title that acted as a litmus test for whether or not you would enjoy the movie, FRANKENHOOKER has got to be high up there. It's either a title that makes you go, yes, I need to see this film, or no thanks, that doesn't sound like it's for me. It's a horror comedy from 1990, but as with most things at the turn of a decade, the vibe and feel of it is very much of an 80s sort of B-grade exploitation movie, and it revels in it. It makes virtues out of all of its shortcomings. So if you're up for the ride, my wife and I found that FRANKENHOOKER was an exceptionally fun time. In fact, she laughed her ass off more than even I did, which I wasn't expecting. We follow our main character, Jeffrey Franken, who at the start of the film loses his fiancée in a lawnmower accident and saves some of her body parts with a view to creating a new body for her so that she can live again, because he can't live without her. How romantic. Unfortunately for her to live, someone else has to die and donate their body, which he is very uncomfortable with. He gets over this moral quandary by lobotomizing himself with a power drill numerous times, until the guilt go away, and then decides to run an open audition of about half a dozen sex workers in New York to try and find the perfect body. But unfortunately, what he finds is that each lady has a different part which is perfect, and so he can't choose one of them. Luckily for him, unluckily for them, they come across his stash of super meth that he has created to painlessly kill the lady he chooses, and they go on a meth binge and they all explode. So he collects up all their body parts and stitches the various 10 out of 10 pieces together so that he can put his fiancee's head on top of them and bring her back to life. It's gory, outrageous, nonsense fun. It wears its shortcomings on its sleeve. So if you kind of like the practical effects where you can see the plaster casts and the seams and the fishing wire and just see there on screen how it's done, but understand that it's all done with a kind of strange love and a feeling of, hey, let's put on the show right here in the barn, then that is writ large through FRANKENHOOKER from start to finish. What I will say, and horror comedies are notoriously difficult to pull off, as you can imagine. The pacing is really uneven. The comedy is really uneven. I think one of my main issues I've got a couple of issues with the film. It seems strange to get picky with a film that is clearly put together with spit, double-sided tape and love. But the gripes I have are things I felt could have been fixed. For example, our main character, Larry, is played by James Lawrence, who I'd seen before as the doorman in Street Trash. In fact, Street Trash is quite a nice analogy to this. It too is patchy. The pacing of both of these films is off, and sometimes the comedy is awkward, and sometimes it lands, and sometimes it doesn't land. James Lawrence as the doorman in Street Trash was one of the absolute highlights for me. That man is clearly an improv talent. He can create these slimy sleazeball characters, and some of the runs and riffs he went on in Street Trash are my absolute favourite aspect of that movie. Unfortunately, with the script of FRANKENHOOKER, Jeffrey is very much a loner, so you have an awful lot of scenes where it's James Lawrence talking to himself. So Lawrence has no other characters to sort of bounce off and spark in the same way he did so brilliantly in Street Trash. Likewise, Patty Mullen, who plays Elizabeth, the fiance, she has got a tiny resume, two movies and one TV show. And before this, she was a model and a penthouse pet. So I was thinking, okay, it's part of this tradition of hiring people who work in the porn or the soft porn industry because they're going to be comfortable with sex scenes or nudity. And I set the bar way too low for her. Her charisma is absolutely off the scale. She has a very short amount of screen time as Elizabeth, the fiance, and I just engaged with her immediately. The other problem with the film is the script. It takes far too long for her to return as the titular Frankenhooker, but when she does, she is on. It's a really quirky performance. It might rub some people up the wrong way, I don't know, but I just, for some reason, I wasn't expecting this amount of energy and vim and characterization to come from her, and I apologise to her. She's an absolute highlight of the movie. So, yeah, James Lawrence and Paddy Mullen separately are both excellent. Give them more interaction, give them more things to do. Unfortunately, script-wise, the Frankenhooker character doesn't appear until about an hour into the movie, and then she doesn't do that much, and then the film ends. Now, the ending is kind of wild on a sort of level of the substance, a little bit the substance on a budget, should we put it that way? Apart from some minor gripes which feel a little bit mean, but I think there are gripes that stuff could have been fixed in pre-production at script stage. You have a really sleazy New York setting which fits the sleaziness of the movie. There's plenty of naked female flesh on display in keeping with the 80s aesthetic of this movie, and really honestly you see the poster and you kind of know what you're in for. So Frank Henenlotter, my question is, should I dip into the rest of his catalogue, especially considering after a little clear out after watching the film I found out that I own the Basket Case trilogy, so it would seem like a bit of a shame not to, wouldn't it?
I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.